Round 10 of the US Chess Championship did not disappoint. It was a very decisive day. We're going to be looking at all the decisive moments in those games after we look over the featured Fabiano Caruana game. So it's going to be a whole recap on the whole tournament. A little bit different of a format today. Let me know what you think. Fabi is playing Abihmanyu Mishra. Yesterday was a little bit of a Fabi glaze, and I can't say today is going to be anything less because he just uncorked a 94 move win with the white pieces where he was losing and then wasn't losing and then was winning. Abihmanyu fell asleep at the wheel after 30 moves of just subtlety, of a whole lot of nothing, and then it turned into something. I did add times. Good comment, whoever commented that. So now we're going to be able to follow along because time plays a factor into chess. You know it, I know it. Have you ever played bullets? This game turned into a bullet game. That's how long it was. G3, we get a Najdorf intro over. Apologies for the... No, I don't apologize. It's a good intro. Pawn to G3, opening up the light squared bishop. A little bit of a sideline. We get pawn to E5 by Abihmanyu. Not a great day to be a Hans fan. We're going to look over all the decisive moments, so you'll see why. Pawn to E5, and this resembles a Sveshnikov, right? The Sveshnikov, the oh-so famous Sveshnikov, played in the Fabi versus Magnus World Championship match. And then it turned into a disgusting 30-move line theoretical opening with 100 different lines, and it just ruined the fun of it. So we got castles, castles, and pawn to B5, expanding on the queen side. Black gets a backwards pawn, but you get an imbalanced pawn structure, so you can play to win. White gets a D5 outpost that he can claim with his knight, as he does. Black takes the knight. What do you take back with? Don't listen to the arrows. You actually take back with the queen. If you take with the pawn, you're statically claiming an outpost, so it's no longer an outpost. You just kind of have a stupid bishop, and this pawn can't move for the rest of the game. So you take with the queen. This is dynamically claiming the outpost, because queens can move, pawns, if they're blockaded and can't capture, cannot. Crazy concept. So he takes with the queen. We get rook lift. Bishop hits rook. I've actually seen IM games in this exact position. Maybe not this exact position, because I'm used to rook d... No, yeah. This is I know this line. I've seen this line before. I've seen rook to d7 here. But Abihmanyu goes rook a8. I guess this is the meta. We get pawn to f4, kind of resembling Grand Prix nature. Except in open Sicilians, you thrust with f4 in the middle game. In closed Sicilians, like I love, you waste the spring in the opening. But 10 hours versus 1,000 hours to master. Which would you rather? I beat GMs all the time in the close. This is a good opening. Pawn to a5. All you need is an equal game. And Fabi has that. So we get pawn to a5, creating a pawn chain, opening up a6 for black. And what should white play here? The oh-so-tricky pawn f5. Usually a move like this is an overextension, but here not so much. Here you go, pawn f5, kick the bishop out, and start rotating over the knight. Fabi rotates over the knight. Okay, fine. Knight to c6. And then knight to c4. Again, f5 was the best move. He makes a mistake, knight c4, and it doesn't look like a crazy mistake, and it's not. But try to play this position with the white pieces. The more you look at it, the harder it is to even make a move. Abihmanyu goes to d4 with his knight. Fabi figures the best way to deal with that is to double isolate the pawns. Except Abihmanyu officially has the bishop pair. We get knight back to d2. The rook comes to c8. And there's just so much underlying pressure. There's so much spring in black's position that to be able to hold this, you have to be top level. Fabi does an amazing job. Look how much time he's spending. He does an amazing job coordinating his pieces. Right? This queen needs to be here. Blockading the double isolated pawn. If this pawn is not here, it's clipped. It's GG's. You have to worry about b3. You have to worry about bishop c4. You can't move your knight. This is hard. Okay, we get knight to b3. And Abihmanyu messes up here. What should you play? Mishra should have played bishop to c4. And Fabi essentially has to go for the exchange sacrifice. And he's so good at this. He did this previously in the tournament. And yeah, you have a queen. But how do you win? How do you win against Fabi nevertheless? It's... The way he does it is incredible. I mean... realizing a disadvantage, sacking the queen when you need to sack a queen. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Fabi, literally after this game, Fabi was probably like, it's no big deal. It's just what I do. These are a little bit tilted. I got to get them fixed up. Got them in Serbia, and I like them. I have more shades, but I like these. But rook to c8, the bishop... No. This isn't what happened. See, I zoned out for a second, and we went off board. But we get bishop takes, b3, pawn takes. So Mishra goes for the trade, thinking, oh, doubled pawns, claimed open file. But kind of like in the Hans Niemann game yesterday from a Berlin, the person claiming the open file was at the disadvantage, and this is the same effect to that nature. So Mishra claims the open file, and the next 30 moves are just shuffling. Okay, we poke and prod, gain some space on the king side. He gets out of said pin. We get rook to c5, queen to f3, and look at this, 16 minutes to 17 minutes. But Fabi knows. Fabi's like, you know, I'm the veteran. I have the experience here. I have to trust my instincts in a time scramble. That's essentially what he does. So is he going to trade queens here? He should. He can. But he goes queen f1. He's like, I'm going to build. I'm going to take more time off the clock. That's exactly what he does. So look at this. It's literally 30 moves of rotating. And then boom. It's not 30 moves of rotating. So he trades. We got bishop back to d. He trades, doubles Mishra's pawns, and just goes on a hike. He's like, you could do nothing to my position. And Mishra really burns clock. It's 12 minutes for Fabi, 2 for Mishra, because he saw Fabi's idea of rook c1. He's like, wait, is this winning? Is this not winning? He might have gotten in his head. He's like, oh, it might be winning. But then Fabi doesn't even go for that. He's playing the clock. This is a masterful demonstration of the psychological part of the game. Chess. The game that we play, that we watch. So we get bishop to h8. Also, let me know if you like the full game recaps, if you like the critical moments of the other games. I don't want to look at all the games, all the decisive games, because what, are you guys going to watch me for 2 hours? No, we got to keep it short, right? I value your guys' time. And so we're going to just do the critical moment, you know, the dopamine hits. So we get king to h7, bishop c4, a lot of shuffling, a lot of boom bam, and then we, oh, whoa, okay. King to f8, minute 50 on the clock. Fabi misses it. What should you do? Bishop a6, it's suspicious, for sure, because it trades into an endgame, but the reason is Mishra had to keep his king over here to go here, and with the king on f8, no one's saving that pawn. But it is still an opposite color bishop endgame. And Fabi's like, no, but I want more. I'm going to go for this pawn. And Mishra finds the incredible pawn to d3 with a minute on the clock, changing the dynamic of the pawn structure, trading a set of rooks, and now creating a 3-on-2 imbalance, kind of looking like a banco now on the queen side. You know, with that pawn b5 gambit. Reminds me of it, don't ask. Overwhelming the structure, though. King to e2. What did Fabi have to play here? Find the move. Pawn to h5. He had to claim the file immediately before Mishra can get there. Probably nerve. How do you calculate? With 2 minutes on the clock, 1 minute on the clock, rook to f2. I don't know. I don't know about that. In fact, matter of fact, if Fabi's taken a test, picture you're at university. Fabi takes a test next to Stockfish. Stockfish probably looks over. He's like, wait, Fabi, what's the answer? You know, Fabi, Stockfish needs to look at Fabi for the correct move. That's how we're coming today. But he goes king e2, and this allows Mishra's rook to get to h8. Okay, Fabi closes the pawn structure. We got rook to h8, rook to d1. I feel like Fabi back in the day might blunder this position, might bail out with a draw. He's looking sharp. He's looking confident. He knows how strong he is. Have you guys noticed how many different openings he's been playing? He's played the Caro. He's played like, what round is it? 10? He's played like literally 10 different openings at an insane level. And he finds the only line to play for a win with a minute on the clock. He plays like this. You might see Fabi as your next world champion. Seriously. Rook takes c5, rook f8, rook takes a5. Okay. So we have an opposite color bishop endgame. What do we know about that? It favors the aggressor if there's still other pieces, like major pieces on the board. This pawn is very, very scary. But at the end of the day, Fabi's up a pawn, and a pawn is a pawn. We get king d3, rook f3. And Mishra had to play rook to c3 in this position. Look at this. Look at this disgustingness. Right? Look at this. Like, you can lose. You can lose the game. Check for discovery. This is disgusting stuff. But he goes rook f4. Sensible. He wants to hold on to the pawn. We get mistake after mistake and ice in his veins. Rook to a6. We've come full circle. Or is that half circle? 180, right? Not 360. So pawn to g3. It doesn't work. Fabi calculated the win. With a minute on the clock, he solved the rest of the game. Pawn to g3. Right? Mishra had to go king to... No one is playing king to h6. If you do, you're bugging. So we get pawn to g3, or you're the best, but you're bugging still. So we get bishop to e4 stopping, and the whole point is that you have rook to g6, and that pawn is going nowhere. We get rook to g6, and Abihmanyu crumbles under the nerves on move 88. Truly sad for him. King to... but happier for Fabi, for sure. Like, for sure I wanted Fabi to win this game. Look at the content. Look at Fabi deserves it. He deserves it. But king to f7 had to be played. He goes king to h7. Now it's tactic time. Boom, discovery. Kind of iconic. He could have saved the day with the discovery, and Fabi wins with the discovery. Picks up the rook. He knows that this is just a win. It is an opposite color bishop endgame, but you're up 2 passers. You're using this as a decoy. His king can never leave. And in this position, Abihmanyu Mishra resigns. Who's ready for the decisive moments? Like this one. Win this position as black. You're Wesley So. You have a pawn 1 away from promoting. Pretty good game, right? And if Fabi had drawn, he'd be tied with Wesley. But because Fabi won, he's going into the final round with a half-point lead. That's huge. I mean, that is big stuff. Excellent. Fantastic news for the unemployed. What move did you come up with? King f2. Incorrect. King f2 blunders the game away. Right? There's no check. The pawn is getting through. But at what cost? The cost of a fork. There's always tricks. These guys do not lose. You need to beat them 10 times over to even have a chance at winning. The move is knight to g7. A beautiful finish by Wesley. The point is it creates a decoy, or creates a blockade for the pawn. If rook to f8, you just go king e3, and no one's stopping the pawn. You can't get to the pawn, so he takes it, or rather, he gives a check, right? He cannot take it because then you just promote and there are no checks. So he gives a check, king to... When do you ever see the king going onto the file, right? Usually you're trying to get off the file to get the pawn through. One last trick, don't promote, you make it harder on yourself. We get check, and he resigns. White resigns, that is, because now there is no fork, you're in check, and the pawn just gets through. Amazing stuff. This one was a draw, but I felt I had to show it. Andy Woodward was cooking Sam Shankland. Also, Shankland, I believe he's always in like San Fran, and one of my students was playing him in a simul and had a winning position. He had Sam Shankland in Zooks 1, but he was the last one going in the simul. He used his king the wrong way and he threw, but he literally had Sam Shankland in Zooks 1. I mean, we get a round of applause for my student. All right, what do you play here as white? You have to not go g4. What do you think Woodward did in this position? He went g4. You have to go g4 in 2 moves. The problem with going g4 right now, as he did, is the move pawn to a4, and the 3-on-2 collapses the queen side. Pawn takes, pawn to b3, and the pawn is getting through. Right? Boom, boom. No one's stopping that pawn. And if takes, there is a perpetual. You take the pawn, you lose the rook. If you go here, you lose the game. Lose the game. So it's going to be a perpetual. So, what should you do? Rook to c5. You have to anticipate the collapsing of said pawn structure and have your rook ready to go. You need to have your rook ready to go. Right now it doesn't work. A4, B takes A4, pawn to B3, boom and boom and boom. So he had to do this. And if you play like a waiting move, say like rook A1, then you go pawn to G4. And again, the collapse does not work because your rook is already there. You got to feel for him. It was move 38. And he must have... Wait, did he have 27 minutes on the clock? And I don't know if I believe that. He spent 10 minutes. I don't know. I guess so. G4 and Shankland. Shankland earns the draw. So good for Shankland. Way to bounce back and earn that. And now we got Hans Niemann. And then we got one more after this. But Hans Niemann was cooking. In fact, you're winning in this position as black. What would you play in this position? I believe you might find the win. The win is rook takes c4. This is what most people would play. We'll see where he went wrong in his calculations. But the point is, if queen takes a6, there's two ways to win. You could just take the pawn on d5. Black is up 2 pawns. Same colored bishop. GG's. You could also go rook c2 and just pile up an immense amount of pressure, and the bishop can't move. But Hans went for the flashy rook to e3, a blunder. Almost a brilliancy, but a blunder. What did he miss? What did he miss that Sevian found with 35 seconds on the clock? The threat is rook takes h3, g takes h3, queen to e4, check and mate. And the bishop can't take the rook, right? Deflection, battery checkmate on h2. Hans missed the cool, calm, and is that move cool, calm, and collected? Not so much, actually. Pawn to d6, opening up the queen on this diagonal, disconnecting the queen and the bishop. Hans has to take, and now we get rook to d1. There is no longer a sacrifice. And what's so sad is Hans is losing this and gets right back into the game. Right? He's down a piece, but he gets back into the game. He plays excellent defense. H5, excellent defense. King to F7, that is. For example, like you can't take because then there's a perpetual. So there's fortresses, perpetuals all over. What do you play as black in this position? You have to take. You have to take and go h4, and you have yourself a fortress. The 3-on-2 will pose itself effective. The king and rook, the rook can't sack itself for this pawn. Right? Rook, envision the king being over there, because these pawns need to be dealt with as well. Unfortunately, he does not go for this, and it is too little too late. The queen trade gets forced, but now it's not a fortress because that is a passed pawn. So very good day for Sam Sevian. Hans, hopefully his hotel room is insured. I don't know what else to say. Now, Awonder Liang versus Ray Robson. Awonder with the white pieces. It's black to move. Yes, white has an advantage. What should black play? Black should play f6, guarding this pawn. And granted, it's not aesthetically pleasing, but white has to figure it out. Rather, he does what most good players do, tries to change the dynamic of the pawn structure, sacrificing a pawn, and this is how you really throw your opponent off. You should take, but maybe you didn't want to give up the bishop pair. There's a lot of complications with bishop to d4. So instead he goes rook to g8. But find the winning move for white now. This was an exciting day, a lot of decisive results. Are you still watching this? If you're still watching this, you're a tank. You're a beast. You're the best. That's all I gotta say. Queen to f2, that's all I gotta say. Right? This pawn cannot be taken because this pawn will be taken, and that pawn, let me speak English, has a higher relative value in comparison. Slow it down. No need to rush. We get passivity, right? And before he needed to break, he needed to break. He can't play f5 anymore. He can't play f5 anymore. So we get rook to g7, pawn to g5. Pawn to g5. He also can't play pawn f6 because of pawn to g5. That pawn he gave away, a lot of the times this is what happens. You give away material to change the dynamic of the position, and the way your opponent has to win, the re-win, is give back that material in favorable form. That it's not the material that makes you winning. It's the ability to give back the material in a favorable way. Bookmark this. It's facts. And yeah, we just, we get a lot of poking and prodding. He tries to open up the position, but we get a rook on the 7th. Look at this cool, calm, and collected. He goes pawn hunting, picks up 2 pawns. Okay, black has the bishop here. You got to be a little careful. But there's no mate. There's no mate. He's like, I don't even want your pawn. I'm going to trade into an opposite color bishop endgame. But what do we always talk about? When you're the aggressor, you're chilling. Not to mention, you're up 3 pawns. It's also good when you're up 3 pawns. Thought it'd be easier to leave the queens on the board, and he's right. His pawns are 1 away from promoting. It's just all about technique. It's all about technique. And that he has. No rush. No rush at all. And then he ends up forcing the queen trade. And Ray Robson resigns because there's nothing he could do. That's a lot of pawns to a little bit of pawns, and that's a win. So Fabi has a half-point lead going into round 11, the final round of the tournament tomorrow. Who do you guys want to win? You want Hans to bounce back? Is Fabi going to take it? Is it going to be tie? Is it tie breaks if he ties with Wesley So? I don't even know how they do it. They change it every single tournament. But was this video too long? Thank you as always for watching. Have a great day.